G'day, guys. This is Big Biff's Life of Mayhem. Thanks for joining. You guys are awesome. Kick back, put your feet up, do whatever you got to do, get comfortable, and listen to exactly what you got to not do in your life to have this hectic, chaotic lifestyle that I used to live. So today, I've been asked to talk about like the first time in jail and, you know, things that are associated with your first time in jail and like the experiences what I experience and what I've seen people experience on their first time in jail. So let's get into it. Um, Enjoy. So your first time in jail is a pretty, it's a pretty daunting experience for anyone. People would say that it wasn't daunting for them, but they're talking absolute, So it's a pretty daunting experience, and it can be like the whole family's involved. You'll find most times when people go to prison that their families are involved the first time, but after that, it's a pretty hard thing on your family. So yeah, it's a pretty, their whole family's involved. It's a pretty crazy experience, and like always before you go to prison, I mean, either whether you get arrested or you've been locked up from a courthouse or whatever, you will always go from jail into the, you will always go from court into the um, court cells, which are usually at the police station, which are 99% of the time at the police station. If not, if you're in Melbourne, they've got their own cells down there underneath the court, but you generally 99.9% of the time go through the police cells, which can be pretty daunting experience for anyone, just that experience in itself, because you've got people that have just had their livelihood taken off them and, their families. So they're not happy people and everyone just gets thrown in together. Usually there's like 5 cells on one side of the pod, I'll call it, in the police cell, like the place where they put you before you move on from there. So there's usually 5 cells on either side in one yard, and in that 5 cell, they usually sleep 3 people, 2 to 3 people anyway. And so there's at least 15 blokes in this little square that's tiny. And so, and also, you've got everyone that's walking around being a rooster too, trying to let everyone know how tough they are. And before they get to jail, you can usually pick out who the real tough ones are because they're usually the ones that are just sitting there being quiet. Always look out for the ones that are being quiet, and usually the ones that are the loudest, the ones that bark the loudest, have usually got the worst bite, they say. And yeah, so people are roostering around, and if it's your first time in jail, like we're talking about, and like you haven't lived that before, that's a pretty scary experience. And like back in the day, you used to spend up to 28 days in one set of cells, and they could move you on. Like back in the day, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, like people were spending months in the police cells before they were even getting to a remand centre or the MAP, which is what it's called in our state, Melbourne Assessment Prison. So, yeah, so the police cells can be like pretty scary, and you always see a lot of fights at the police cells because you get a lot of people that are on the crack, on the smack. People are coming down off the drugs. They've just lost everything. You got alcoholics that aren't drinking now. Like it's crazy. It's like a powder keg of men waiting to go off, and it does go off. And like, just that itself. Like I've even seen people, um, you know, not make it to the yard and go somewhere else before they even get to the jail, but just because the police cells is enough to make them, um, yeah, do that. So yeah, the police cells is where you go first, and you better bet that that can be pretty crazy too, because like um, people put stuff in places that the police don't find. I'll just say drug wise, you know. So like usually everyone's off their head or coming down or like hanging out or like need a drink or you know, out of 10 blokes you'll have that one bloke that's in there for like either a suspect driving offence but looks like a sex offender, or you've got the bloke that's, you know, just does white collar crime and that's what he does, you know. But like 90% of the blokes in there are all in there for some drug related crime somehow. So then after the police cells in Victoria, we've got this place that's called the Sub, right? Which is generally where everyone goes. You can bypass the Sub, and if you do, you're a very lucky man. So like the Sub is the what's used to be called, we call it the Yellow Sub. And so it's like the Melbourne Remand Centre, or other people call it, let's just call it the Yellow Sub, which is basically a police cells on steroids. So it's just a whole bunch of cells that's directly underneath the Melbourne Magistrates Court. And look, it houses hundreds of men, you know, and then so like you kind of graduate from say 15 people in the yard to 30 people in the yard. And then it's just more crazy then because you've got people from all around the state, people that have got enemies over there in that corner. Like it's freaking crazy. And so like, yeah, you go there and like if you're very lucky, you spend one night at there and you move on to the Melbourne Assessment Prison. But before that, you've got to go to the Sub, which is it's basically a police cells, but it's now run by Corrections Victoria. And yeah, it's probably a lot more professional now than what it used to be when I was coming up. And so the Sub is where I had my very first fight in jail, which was over my shoes. And I have done a video on that. If you have a look on my profile, don't forget to subscribe, smash that subscribe button. But yeah, that's where I had my first fight. It's definitely like a powder keg in there, like people just fighting all the time, you know. Like, say, for instance, three blokes know that that one dude over there's got drugs in his pocket, in his back pocket, and they want some, but he's not giving any. Like, they're going to go and get it. Like, you better believe they're going to go and get it. And, you know, so that in itself, like, if you're a first timer and you're in there seeing all that shit, that's enough to put the wind up anyone. And I'm talking full grown men, like, you know, you got men that have got face tattoos and just covered in tattoo. There's like some men are ripped, you know, a lot of them are boned out and skinny because they're junkies, but like there are some like tough mother truckers that go in there, you better believe it. And, you know, once again, like there's people just from all around the state and they're all in this one little thing. So that's a powder keg in itself. And then, so from there, everyone goes to the Melbourne Assessment Prison, which is called the MAP. We call it the MAP, which stands for the Melbourne Assessment Prison, which is basically where everyone starts off their first sentence, second sentence, wherever. Everybody goes to the MAP. And so that is also a, so they kind of work out your security rating there. So, yeah, they kind of work out your security rating. And from there, you kind of, like, you can only spend a couple of days at the MAP, you know, but you know, normally people will spend maybe a week there. And then so you get your classification. So that's where you see what we call Classo, SMU, whatever, which stands for Sentence Management Unit. And so they're the people that tell you and deem you suitable for what jail you go to. And, you know, there's a lot of jails in Victoria. You know, there's the 4 maximum security prisons, which is the MAP, the one I'm talking about right now. Then you've got the Metropolitan Remand Centre, which is where everybody goes on remand. And then you've got Port Phillip Prison, and then you've got Barwon Prison. And then the medium security prisons, you've got Fulham Prison, you've got Margate Prison, and then I believe you've got Ravenhall Prison now, which is a B rating prison. And you've got Loddon, which is a B rating prison in Castlemaine. And then you've got C rating prisons like Darren and Beechworth. So, that's basically the choices you've got to pick. I don't know if I said Margate for a B rating jail, but anyway, there's Margate as well. So you basically don't get a pick on where you go. You get a say 100%, but your say doesn't mean shit. They make a choice on where you go depending on what your charges are, the seriousness of your charges, and so and then how you're behaving when you're locked up at that time. And so generally people will bypass like the maximum security jails like Port Phillip and Barwon on their first go round, They will generally try and do the right thing by people and not do that to them and send them there on their first time. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, because it absolutely happens. People get sent there. But if you're on remand from the map, so anyway, they work out your security classification there and work out whatever jail they think you're suitable to go to, depending on your behaviour and the seriousness of your charges. Like if you're in on like a bank robbery, or serious violent offences, they're not going to send you to a B rating jail, or they're not going to send you to a C rating jail. They're not going to send you to a B rating jail until you can prove that you can behave in B rating rules, which is shit. And like B rating jails are crap. And then, so yeah, you get your security classification, which can be a daunting thing in itself, because it's always on people can say that it wasn't a daunting thing getting told they'll go on a Port Phillip or Barwon on their first go round. If they told you that, like I think that 99% of people that said that would be talking shit. You would get like the odd hard bastard that wouldn't give a shit, but like, I'll say 90% of people, would be worried about, not worried, but like it's just like, oh, where am I going to go? And like for a first timer, you hear about all the bad shit that happens at Port Phillip or Barwon. Like people want to bypass that shit, There are people that want to jump in head first and do that shit, but most people want to bypass it. And so yeah, you go in and see Classo, you get your security classification, and then from there, either if you are on remand, you will go to a remand prison, like I said, Metropolitan Remand Centre, MRC, or Port Phillip is also a remand/sentence jail, a sentence remand jail, it's called. And then so if you are on remand, you will go to one of them jails. If you are sentenced, you will go to a sentence jail like the other ones I mentioned, Barwon, Loddon, Fulham, Margate, you will go to one of those. And, in later times, I've seen a lot more first timers coming through at Port Phillip, where I spent 7 years, maximum security jail. It's full on there. It's mental. I've seen people die there. I've seen people get stabbed the shit out of them there. I've seen everything you could think about that happens in a prison. I've seen it with my own eyes, and that place I can tell you is like somewhere you need to tread with caution, And then, so if you're sentenced, you will go to a sentence jail, like I said. So, generally, there's a little bit more order in a sentence jail than there is in a remand jail, because in the remand jails, you're still getting people coming through that have got through the breaks, have gone to the sub, the police cells, the sub, the map, and then, a week in, they've done 6 days and they're already at like either a remand jail, or a sentence jail, but generally not. So, that is where, sorry guys, that is where you will go. You will go to the remand jail, and if you go to the remand jail, like I said, there's generally a lot more order in the remand jail than there is, there's a lot more order in the sentence jail than there is in the remand jail, and I just found that a lot more shit pops off at the start, like, gang warfare type shit, or like, crew warfare. It's not really called gangs here, it's called crews, And so, everyone's a part of a crew or a clique, or you get the odd bloke who's not, who's on his own. A lot of people do that, and like good on them for doing that, 100%. But like a lot of that stuff kind of starts there, but a lot of the like crazy stuff happens because people are still off their heads. So yeah, up to some people spend years at a remand jail before they even get their sentence. So remand is what happens if you get locked up and you haven't been given bail. So you are then on remand awaiting trial. So you go there, and for me, for my last big one that I done when I done my 8.5 years, I was on remand for like nearly 2 years, and like at MRC, and like spent a lot of that time in a regime unit where you get locked down at 2 o'clock for being a naughty boy. So yeah, like they're no joke. They're no joke. Any of the maximum security jails in Victoria are no joke, even the remand jails. And then you go to once you get sentenced, so you will stay at a remand jail or a sentence remand jail. You will not go to a sentence jail if you are on remand, And like usually, if you see somebody at a sentence jail and they're on remand, you usually have to scratch your head and go, "Oh, okay, yep, all right." Um, so yeah, and for a first timer going to like one of them remand jails, it's fucking crazy. And like it really just opens your eyes up to like everything that you didn't know about jail. Like, because once you're on the inside looking out, it's different than on the outside looking in. Believe me, it doesn't matter what anyone tells you about jail, unless you experience it yourself, it doesn't do it justice. Like, because I'm telling you, it is fucking mental. Um, yeah, so for a first timer going to MRC, they've got three different yards there. I mean, they've got more, but that's like protection yards, and then like they've got the slot, the pokey, and stuff like that. So usually, generally, when you go to MRC, you get locked up. You go to B yard. So I know there's a lot more units in B yard, but when I was there, it was just Bellbridge, Burnside, Bellbridge in B yard, and then in A yard you had Atwood and Albion, and then in C yard you had Chartwell, Cambridge, and Chilwell. So generally you will go to B yard first. So this is how it works. So B yard is where people generally go when they first get put on remand. They would go to Burnside, and then from there some people go to Bellbridge, where you can spend the rest of your time on remand. And then from there, if you're a naughty boy, you will definitely see yourself going to Atwood or Albion. If you're a very naughty boy, you will go to Atwood, where I spent months on regimes getting locked down at 2 o'clock for fighting and other scallywag behaviour. But generally, you will go to Albion first, and then if you're a very naughty boy, you will go to Atwood. Then they also have C Yard, which they have cottages in there as well. In with those three units that I said, Chilwell, Chartwell, and Cambridge, they have a cottage system in there, which is where you go if you've been behaving very well, which means there are no screws in there with you. It is basically like a house where you are living with four of your mates on the bottom flare, on the bottom tier, and then four of your mates on the top tier. It's like a 2-story townhouse with 8 bedrooms in it. And so they're the cottages. And if you're a good boy and if you're working and whatnot, you will go to C Yard. And so yeah, that's MRC. And then if you're on sentence remand and you go to Port Phillip, you will generally go to the induction units there, which are either Matilda East, Matilda West, Fishburn East, Fishburn West. And if you have been there before and you are a naughty boy, you will go straight to the appropriate units. So generally on your first time, you will go to them units, and this is where you will really have to find your feet. If you don't know anyone in prison, if you don't know anyone in that prison, you're going to find it a lot harder because people prey on people that don't know anyone. So you really have to find your own feet if you don't know anyone. So basically what you've got to do anyway when you go to prison is you've got to just stick to yourself. Don't try and be something that you're not, to try and make people believe that you're tougher than what you are. Don't tell people lies because they will find out. and like just be yourself. Don't try and be something that you're not. People will just appreciate you for being you. Um, and stick to yourself. Don't get involved in the politics. I say don't get involved in the politics because the politics means like don't get involved in the drugs. Don't get involved in like in the hustle and bustle of all the rules and like enforcing those rules on people, and just stick to yourself. Don't get involved in none of that shit. Otherwise, you will find yourself getting into drama. Soon enough, people will see that you are a lone soldier and you will do your own thing, and you will be left alone. As long as you don't talk to the screws, as long as you're not a dog, as long as you're not a rapist, as long as you're not a pedophile, you will do sweet. And yeah, if you gangster on, and like if you gangster on and you can fight, yeah, that's fine. You probably shouldn't narrate about it. People still do it though. But if you gangster on, like I say gangster on, if you pretend to be tough and you are not tough, I can guarantee you that somebody is gonna test you. They are gonna put you to the test on being tough. Because that's the environment it is. Like as much as it's tough people everywhere, people hate like good blokes hate the blokes that walk around going, ah, fucking, why'd you do this? And I'll smash your face in, and always telling people they're gonna bash them or stab them, this and that, and not following through, and always air raiding and telling people how tough they are, and rah, look how loud I am, I'm scary. You can guarantee you're gonna get found out. You might be able to slip through the breaks for a little bit, but you can guarantee sooner or later someone's going to put you to the test. And I probably shall. When I was in my prime, if there was someone who just came into my unit and we were all comfortable in there doing our time like I was doing, I had a 9-year sentence. So, like, if someone walked into my unit and started telling people how it was going to be, this and that, and started being tough and started like telling people they were going to bash them and going to stab people and didn't do it, I promise you I would have checked them on that and put them to that test. And you know what I mean? I've been stabbed 7 times in my life, shot at, like the whole shabu. So like people telling me they're gonna stab me, like do it, mate. People telling me they're gonna shoot me, do it, mate. Like, usually generally it's piss and wind, you do have those blokes that say they're gonna stab you and then do it, but 90% of the time, if someone's gonna stab you, they're not gonna tell you. Or if someone's gonna shoot you, they're not gonna tell you. And if they do, they're not very smart. So, don't be one of them people. Don't be one of those people because you will get put in check. I promise you, you will get put in check. It's not the best. Yeah. So just be yourself, train, eat well. Like you can eat well in jail. It's free food. You know what I mean? There are also like rorts and like hustles. Everyone's got to have their own hustle. Otherwise, you're not going to survive. You know what I mean? You're only allowed to have $140 put in your account a month, and then basically whatever else you have from then on in is what you've made yourself or you've made from working, which is maximum like $26 a week at some jails. Or if you're on the dole, they call it, you get $12 a week off the government for doing nothing. So spend your time on getting smarter. Like, if you're going to continue on being a criminal, like, obviously what you're doing is wrong because you are in jail thinking about it. So while you're in there, think about what you're doing. Hopefully think about your family because they're who's doing the real sentence, guys. They're the one who's doing the hard yards at home. We're in jail having a laugh, you know what I mean? Like, there's not one drug in jail you can't get. And, like, if you're in a unit's no longer than 100 meters long, so you don't have to go anywhere to get it. Usually it will come and find you. So, like, people are having fun in there. Like, yeah, it is hard, but people are trying to have as much fun in there because it's that hard. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, let's, just think about your family. Or if you're not thinking about your family, or if you've got kids, if you're a man and you're sitting in there and you've got time to think, you need to think about every second of that day that your kids are missing out on your time, and every second of that day your kids are sitting at home doing their heads in, wondering if you're going to die in jail, wondering if you're going to get 10 years, wondering how long this 10-year sentence is going to take. Like 10 when like for me, when someone says you got 9 years, your family, that sounds like 30 years to them. And like, yeah, it sounded like 30 years to me, but like I'd done jail before. So like for me, it wasn't as hard for me to as accept that it was for my family sitting in the back when I copped that sentence for saving a girl's life. Anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, just stick to yourselves, guys. Don't be a rooster. Train. You know what I mean? There's plenty of food. You can buy protein. You can buy gym equipment at most jails. Just stick to yourself. Do that shit. Make yourself a better person. That's what it's all about, making yourself a better person. Whether it's a better criminal or a better man or a better dad or whatever, make yourself a better person. Correct your wrongs. Right your wrong. If you're in jail and you keep coming back to jail for the same thing, obviously you're doing the wrong thing and you haven't figured that out yet. But like, change it up, guys. Change it up. Switch it up. But there's other ways out there to make money other than crime, guys. And if that's your niche, like 100%, I've still got mates that make a living off crime. You know what I mean? But it's not an easy life and it's hard, guys. And you will end up in jail. And believe me, that's when you will find out how much of a hard prick you are when you're in jail with 90% of them that are in there that are hard, that are willing to fight you at the drop of a hat, willing to stab you at the drop of a hat. Mate, I'll say that 50% of them, 90% of people that are willing to stab you are willing to kill you. Like, people don't realize that. They're not stabbing you to make a lesson. They're going to stab you to kill you. Some of these people aren't coming home. They don't give a fucking shit. You're going to do a maximum of 3 years in the slot if you kill someone. If you've got 30 years, people go, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Like, the slot is just jail anyway. You're already in jail. And you know what I mean? So, yeah. So, like, just do your thing, guys. Don't just try and better yourself as a person, as a man in there. Whatever man you want to be, try and be better at it than what you have. Right your wrongs. Notice the mistakes that you're making. If you keep making the same one, obviously it's a mistake. If you're getting caught and you're going to jail for it, you're doing something wrong. So yeah, just like, be smarter, guys. Use that time to be smarter. You can do programs. You can do schooling. Make yourself smarter. Make yourself stronger. You can make yourself so fit. You're not out there using drugs. Like, I know a lot of people still, like, good operating people still use drugs full time, whatever. If that's your thing, that's not me. But if that's your thing, like, when you are in jail, you are not able to do that, like, to the extent as you are outside. You have urines, you have everything like that. But generally, you can make yourself a better person in jail. But everybody has the opportunity to make themselves a stronger person. And I mean, like, physically stronger, mentally stronger. You know what I mean? Like, it will test your wit, believe me. So, like, your first time in jail, this is what I've been talking about, your first time in jail. You better believe that most of them people on that yard are willing to kill you at the drop of a hat, are willing to stab you over a pack of noodles, and are willing to go to town at the drop of a hat. So it's not worth it, guys. So that's a little bit about the first time in jail, guys. I hope you enjoy. If I've missed everything, drop it in the comments, guys. This has been Big Biff's Life of Mayhem. You guys have been awesome. Let's go.